The unexpected war no one expected war to begin on the day of peace. The Galactic Alliance had gathered on Zelor Prime, a neutral planet where old enemies met to sign a historic peace treaty. The hall was full, hundreds of leaders, diplomats, soldiers, and witnesses. And in the back corner, almost unnoticed, stood a single human. His name was Reed Carter. He was not a general, not a leader, just a security guard. Or so they thought. The ceremony began with music. Light filled the great dome. Cameras hovered in the air, broadcasting the event to billions. And then, something changed. The light flickered. A deep rumble echoed under the floor. Then came the scream. And the walls exploded, smoke poured in. Guards grabbed weapons, leaders shouted. But the sound that followed froze everyone in place. A roar, loud, deep, inhuman. From the smoke stepped a creature, not alien, not machine, something worse, a biomonster, tall as a building, covered in sharp bone-like armor, glowing, eyes that moved like a hunter. It walked slowly, confidently. It wasn't here to talk. It was here to end the peace. Panic spread. Some ran, some fired. None made it far. Blasters bounced off its skin. Grenades barely slowed it. It tore through armored guards like paper, and yet, in the middle of the chaos, Reed Carter did not move. He stood where he was, calm, silent. The monster stopped when it saw him. Everyone else had fallen or fled. Only the small human remained. The creature roared again. It wanted him to run. It expected him to scream, but Reed didn't flinch. Instead, he looked up and said 5 simple words. "You made a big mistake." The creature tilted its head, confused. Reed took a slow step forward. The crowd, what remained of it, watched in stunned silence. Who was this human? Why wasn't he afraid? Then Reed reached to his side and pulled out something strange. Not a weapon, not a shield, just a small metal coin. He flipped it in the air. It glowed for a second, and that's when everything changed. From the roof, a hidden panel opened. A beam of light struck the monster in the back. It roared in pain. Reed didn't stop walking. He spoke again. "You weren't the first, you won't be the last, and I've beaten worse than you." The monster lunged, a claw came down fast, but Reed ducked under it like he knew it was coming. He moved fast, smooth, like a ghost. The crowd gasped. He wasn't just a guard, he was trained, he was ready, and then he struck. Not with a weapon, but with a single punch to the neck, just below the armor. The monster staggered. It tried to roar again, but its voice cracked. It fell to one knee. Reed stood above it, eyes locked on its glowing ones. Then he whispered, "I studied your kind. I knew you'd come. And I'm not here to run. I'm here to remind you, humans don't break, we adapt, and we end monsters like you." The monster collapsed. The smoke cleared. Silence. Then cheers. For the first time in years, all races, Brakan, Velari, Zarn, and more, looked at the human in a new way. Not as weak, not as soft, but as something terrifying. And from that day on, the story spread. A monster came for peace when a human answered with courage. The monster's origin. The beast that attacked the Peace Summit on Zelor Prime was not a random creature. It had a name in secret files, a name known only to a few. Project Vorax. As medics cleared the wreckage and diplomats recovered from shock, the Galactic Intelligence Board began an investigation. Who made it? Why? And how did Reed Carter, a simple human security guard, defeat it? The answers were darker than anyone expected. In a hidden underground base beneath a dead moon, files were uncovered. Old, forgotten, marked, Earth Military Archive, black level clearance. They told a chilling story. Years ago, the humans discovered the Vorax genome during a war with a brutal predator species on a far-off death world. Their scientists studied it, trying to find a way to create a super soldier, something that could survive anything, fight anything, outlive. everything. But the project failed. The creatures they made were uncontrollable, smart, violent, hunters. So Earth shut the program down and destroyed the labs, or so they believed. Now one of those creatures had returned, not alone, not random, had been sent by who and for what reason. Back on Zilor Prime, Reed Carter was kept under watch. The council wanted to know everything. "Who are you, really?" one ambassador demanded. "I was trained for threats no one believes in," Reed said. "Until now." They leaned forward. "You knew the Vorax would come?" "I knew someone would try to stop peace. I didn't know it would be that." Reed finally revealed part of the truth. He was part of an Earth Shadow unit, trained not to win wars, but to end monsters. His job wasn't to carry flags. His job was to stand where others ran. And the moment the Vorax appeared, his training took over. Meanwhile, across space, another signal was picked up. A second Vorax, moving through asteroid fields. Then a third, reported on the jungle moon Tassara. They weren't lone monsters. They were being released. Cathel, an alien xenobiologist, studied the footage of the kneeling Vorax. He noticed something odd. The creature didn't act like a berserker. It watched, Reed. It hesitated. Almost like it remembered him. He compared the creature's brainwaves to data from the Earth archives. There it was. Memory echoes, not just instinct, but a flicker of fear. The monster recognized him. But how could a cloned biobeast have memory unless it wasn't just a monster? It was engineered with a past. Someone had stolen the failed experiments and turned them into weapons. Weapons that feared only one thing, the humans who created them. The council demanded action. "If someone is releasing these creatures," the Diao Valari leader said, "then war is coming." Reed stood in silence. He didn't want war. He wanted answers. Late that night, Reed sat alone in his room, holding a coin, the same metal coin he flipped before fighting the Vorax. On its back, a name was etched. Unit 9, Carter, end phase only. He looked at it and whispered, "Who brought you back? And why now?" He knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, someone was building an army of monsters, and they were about to learn. Humans don't run. They face the dark. And they don't flinch. The Shadow Program. Before Reed Carter became the human who didn't flinch, he was part of something the galaxy was never meant to know. The Shadow Program. It wasn't written in any public record. Not even Earth's. Allies knew about it. Only a few high-ranking generals and scientists had clearance. Why? Because it wasn't about defense. It was about preparing for threats that didn't officially exist. Monsters, experiments, creations that had no home. And no mercy. Years ago, during the Death World mission known as Operation Abyss, Earth scouts discovered something horrifying. A hostile ecosystem filled with creatures that couldn't be killed. Every soldier sent in either died or went. Mad except 9 humans, 9 survivors. Reed was one of them. They weren't the strongest. They weren't the smartest. They were the ones who refused to break. The scientists called it adaptive trauma response. Reed called it something else. Standing when every part of you screams to run. After Operation Abyss, those 9 were selected for shadow training. They were taught how to fight monsters, how to think like prey, but strike like fire. No medals, no public missions, only one job. Face the impossible and make it blink first. Back. In the present, Reed stood before the Galactic Council again. This time they weren't shouting, they were listening. Because across 5 systems, new reports were coming in. Creatures like the Vorax, appearing in silence. Attacking research stations, testing defenses. "Whoever is behind this," said a Bracon admiral, "knows how we think. They're sending fear before war." Reed nodded. "That's what monsters do. They don't attack the body first, they attack the will." Cathel, the alien scientist, added his research. "The creatures aren't random. They're remembering. Earth units, that means they're linked to Project Vorax and someone is guiding them." Reed's jaw tightened. That someone was the question that kept him awake at night. Meanwhile, on a dark, frozen planet on the edge of known space, a figure in black watched a holofeed. He smiled as he replayed Reed's fight with the first Vorax. He still stands, the figure whispered. But let's see how long he lasts. When the rest of them wake up, the figure walked through a chamber of tanks. Inside each one, a monster. Sleeping, waiting. Each more advanced than the last. They were not just weapons. They were revenge against the humans who created them, against the universe that feared them. And soon, they would be set loose. Back on Zilor Prime, Reed met privately with Cathel. "Tell me the truth," Cathel said. "How did you survive Operation Abyss?" Reed paused, then looked him in the eye. "I didn't. The man who walked out wasn't the same." Cathel nodded slowly. "I believe you. And I think that's why they fear you. Not your strength, but your ability to walk through hell and still speak calmly." As they left the meeting, a message came through. An outpost on the moon, Relux 7 had gone silent. Final transmission? A single word. "Run." Reed looked at the screen and said softly, "They're not just testing us anymore. They're hunting us." He strapped on his armor, checked his gear, and whispered the Shadow Protocol. "If you see the monster, don't blink, don't speak, and never run. Because monsters don't stop for fear. They stop for those who stand in the storm, without flinching, awakening the forgotten." The moon Relux 7 was cold, dark, and silent. It had once been a peaceful research outpost. Now it was nothing but broken metal and scorched soil. Reed Carter stepped out of the dropship. The wind howled. No voices, no survivors, only shadows. Beside him, Cathel scanned the area. His alien eyes glowed in the dark. "No life signs," he whispered. "Not even birds." Reed crouched beside a crushed helmet. He picked it up. Human design. Blood on the inside. "This wasn't a battle," Reed said. Cathel looked confused. "What was it then?" Reed stood. "A warning." Inside the facility, walls were torn apart. Claw marks everywhere. But something strange stood out. The lab door hadn't been forced open. It was unlocked, like someone had opened it. From the inside, they moved deeper. Lights flickered. Static filled the air. And then, they found it. A room filled with tanks, each one empty, each one once holding something alive. Vorax clones, experiments, failed soldiers, forgotten things. Cathel studied the records. These weren't just weapons. They were tests. Reed nodded. "I recognize the code names. These are from Shadow Phase 2. Cathel blinked. "You were in Phase 1? "I was the last of Phase 1. Suddenly the power surged. A screen came to life. A recording played. An old man in a lab coat appeared. He looked tired, his voice shaky. "If you're watching this, then they're loose. We tried to make something better than the Vorax, stronger, smarter, but we failed. One of them learned to think. It woke the others. They call him Ashtar." The screen glitched, then went black. Reed stared at it. Cathel whispered, "Ashtar. That's not a name, that's a command word in Old Earth Latin. It means..." Reed finished for him. "Burn everything." Back on the edge of the galaxy, Ashtar was already moving. He wasn't like the others. He didn't charge in rage. He walked. He learned. He waited. And now he was building something. Not just an army, a purpose. In space stations, whispers began to spread. Ships going dark. Strange signals in deep space. Shadows moving where they shouldn't. And always, just before silence, a calm, slow voice over comms saying, "He is awake." Back at Galactic Command, Reed faced the Council. The Shadow program created these monsters. Now they're free. "They're coming for us?" The Bracon general growled. "So what do you propose, human?" Reed looked at him calmly. "We don't run. We remind them who survived the first war. We remind them what we do to monsters. Some laughed, but Cathell stood beside him and said, "He doesn't speak loudly, but when he does, you should listen." One counselor asked, "If Ashtar is smarter, what will he do next?" Reed's answer was immediate. "He'll do what we trained him to do. He'll find the strongest defenders and break them first." On the same day, a distress call came in from Ironhold Station, a massive defense base orbiting a gas giant. Last signal, blasting alarms, roars, screams, and one chilling voice. "He's here." Reed didn't wait for permission. He grabbed his gear and said only 2 words, "Suit up," because this war wasn't about territory anymore. It was about who would flinch first, and Reed had already made his choice. Never flinch, never run. Never forget what they created. Ashtar's arrival Ironhold Station was known as the most fortified base in Sector 9. 10 layers of defense, autocannons, elite troops, gravity traps. Nothing had ever broken through, until now. When Reed Carter arrived with Cathell and 2 recon squads, the place was already in silence. The giant defense cannons were offline. The lights flickered red. No voices. No movement. Only the heavy sound of boots echoing in empty metal corridors. They moved cautiously, weapons raised. The air felt thick, like the whole station was holding its breath. Then they found the first bodies, not ripped apart, not burned, just frozen in place. Eyes wide, faces pale. Cathell scanned them. No injuries, no poison. It's like they just stopped moving. Reed looked around. Fear. They reached the central control hub. The doors were torn open from the inside, and in the center of the room stood a figure, not a beast, not a monster, a man, tall, armored, with faint glowing lines along his skin like fire beneath glass. Ashtar. He turned slowly as Reed entered. His voice was deep, calm, and in perfect English. "You came?" Reed didn't raise his weapon. He stepped forward. Cathell whispered, "That's him. That's your creation." Ashtar smiled. "Not a creation, a reflection." The troops behind Reed froze. This was the thing they feared. But Reed, he just looked into Ashtar's glowing eyes and said, "You killed them without a single wound. That wasn't war. That was a message." Ashtar nodded. "Correct. A message only you would understand." Then he stepped closer. "You trained me to survive," Ashtar said. "You showed me how to stand. But you never taught me why." Reed's jaw tightened. "You weren't meant to be more than a weapon." Ashtar tilted his head. "And yet, here I am." He walked slowly past the bodies. "They mocked me. Called me a mistake, a failure. But when I stood still, they flinched. That's when I knew. Fear isn't born from power. It's born from understanding." Reed stared at him. "What do you want?" Ashtar's reply was simple. "I want to see if you still mean it. If you'll still stand when you know you're facing something that learned from you." Without warning, he charged. The troops raised their weapons. Reed didn't move. A flash, Ashtar was in front of him, fist raised. Reed stood tall, eyes locked, unflinching, and then Ashtar stopped. Fist inches from Reed's face, silence, tension, and then he lowered his hand. Cathell gasped. Why did he stop? Ashtar stepped back. Because he meant it. He never ran, not then, not now. He turned away. "Tell the galaxy this. I'm not here to destroy everything. Only the ones who pretend to be strong. Until they're finally tested," Reed called after him. "You think you're the only one who survived the fire?" Ashtar paused. Reed continued. "You're not the only one who was made into a weapon, but I chose what I became, have you?" Ashtar didn't answer. He disappeared into the shadows. Later, Reed sat in the command chair of Ironhold Station. No blood, no war, just fear left behind like smoke. Cathell asked, "Was that a victory?" Reed didn't smile. "No, that was A warning shot. Somewhere out there, Ashtar was moving again. Not as a beast, but as something more dangerous. A monster with purpose. And Reed knew. Next time, Ashtar wouldn't stop. A war of wills. Ashtar didn't strike again immediately. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to shake entire fleets. Outposts evacuated. Alliances fractured. Generals panicked. But Earth stayed quiet, because they had Reed Carter, and Reed knew what was coming. He's not testing defenses, Reed told the Council. He's testing our resolve. Cathell agreed. Ashtar wants to know which species breaks first, which ones flinch under pressure. The Valari ambassador frowned. He could have wiped out Ironhold Station. Why didn't he? Reed looked her dead in the eye. Because killing is easy. Breaking someone without touching them? That's real power. A plan was formed. Reed wouldn't chase Ashtar. He'd invite him. A broadcast was sent across all open frequencies. A short, simple message. You want to test fear, Ashtar? Come find me, I'll be waiting. No army, no tricks, just the one who made you. And the location? Abyss Null. The place where the Voraks were first born. The galaxy watched, in silence. Was the human suicidal, or was this something more? A trap? A bluff? On the chosen day, Reed arrived at Abyss Null alone. The planet was dead. Black rocks, broken sky, craters like open scars. He stood at the same spot he did years ago. Back then, he was afraid. Now, he was ready. Hours passed. Then, a shadow appeared on the cliff. Ashtar, tall, silent, watching. He descended slowly, step by step. Neither spoke, until finally Ashtar stood only 10 feet away. Reed didn't reach for a weapon. He just stared. Ashtar broke the silence. Why did you bring me here? Reed's voice was calm. To finish what we started. No armies, no escape, just two beings who refused to break. Ashtar tilted his head. You trained me to survive, but I've outgrown you. I've adapted beyond your limits. Reed replied softly. Then prove it. Ashtar didn't move. He studied Reed, searching. For fear. Doubt. Even a flicker of hesitation. But there was none. Just stillness. Steel in his eyes. Finally, Ashtar asked, Aren't you afraid? Reed answered without blinking. Every second, but I don't let it drive me. Ashtar's voice dropped. Then what does? Reed stepped forward. The flame. The choice to stand even when it burns. Ashtar's eyes flickered. Memories rushed in. Training rooms, screams, darkness, and Reed's voice in the chaos saying, Stand up. One more time. Ashtar looked down at his hands. Glowing veins, power beyond anything natural, but somehow Reed, scarred, quiet, mortal, stood taller. Then something unexpected happened. Ashtar knelt, not in surrender, but in respect. I came to destroy my makers, he said. But I see now. You were never trying to create killers. Reed nodded slowly. I was trying to build survivors. Ashtar looked up. Then let me choose. From orbit, Cathell watched in disbelief. Is he bowing? The Council exploded in messages. The galaxy didn't know what to think. The most feared being in known space had just stopped. Back on the surface, Reed extended a hand. Ashtar took it, not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as a man finally free of his programming, and in that moment, Reed whispered something no one heard but Ashtar. You were never the monster. Fear was, and you beat it. The day fear lost, the moment, Ashtar took Reed Carter's hand, everything across the galaxy began to change. The monster that was born from war, engineered to destroy, had made a choice. Not to kill, not to run, but to stand with the one he was, created to surpass. News spread faster than light. Ashtar bowed to a human. The weapon of fear. surrendered to its own reflection. A monster remembered what it meant to be human. For years, aliens had whispered about humans. Strange, fragile, emotional. But now they called them something else, unbreakable. At the Galactic Peace Summit, rebuilt after the earlier attack, Reed Carter stood before thousands, alien leaders, soldiers, scientists. All waited to hear what he would say. But Reed said very little. Only this. Fear wins when we flinch, but strength, true strength, is found in stillness. Then, to the surprise of many, Ashtar stepped forward. No chains, no armor, just a quiet presence. He stood beside Reed and said in a steady voice, "I was made from fear, but this man taught me that fear can be faced. And when it is, it loses." Some still feared him, some always would, but others, especially young warriors, cadets, and civilians, saw something new. Hope. Across the stars, statues of ancient conquerors were torn down, and in their place, murals appeared. Murals of a human, standing calm in the face of terror, of a monster kneeling before stillness. And beside those images, a short quote began appearing everywhere. "Flinch, and you feed it. Stand, and you finish it." Cathell, now head of a new Joint Species Defense Academy, made Reed's story required reading. Cadets were taught not only tactics, but resistance. Emotional, mental, the kind of resistance no armor could give. As for Reed Carter, he didn't stay in politics. He didn't write books or lead armies. He returned to a small outpost on a quiet moon, where young warriors would come to ask, not to fight, and he would simply say, "I don't train bodies, I train hearts." Ashtar, too, vanished from the spotlight. But whenever disaster struck, a bioplague, a planetary quake, a monster too wild to contain, witnesses always reported seeing a tall figure with glowing lines, helping, not hurting. In the end, people stopped asking what Ashtar was made of. They asked instead, what made him change? And the answer always came back, a human who didn't flinch and said something no monster had heard before. "You don't scare me," because that's all it took. Not weapons, not war, just one man, standing still, when even the stars held their breath. The end.